So my name is Cherri Foytlin. I work with BridgetheGulf.og, and we do citizen journalism, help to lift up voices in the Gulf Coast as they deal with social issues or environmental injustices. Used to be a small town, I used to work for a small town newspaper, and they kind of rolled into this after the spill. And I've lived in Rayne, Louisiana for almost a decade. It'll be 10 years here right after the Katrina anniversary in August. So our area in Rayne, Louisiana, in Arcadia Parish, we were impacted in a variety of ways from the spill, where we don't butt up to the Gulf. We are about 60 miles north of the Gulf. Rayne is, Arcadia Parish is closer, obviously. Where we weren't directly impacted by oil necessarily, we had a lot of the social impacts still happen within our area, such as the moratorium. We're an oil workers town. When the moratorium happened, it was kind of a bittersweet kind of thing, because a lot of people were without jobs, without opportunities at that time, and we are kind of paycheck to paycheck people, working class people, and so we really suffered in that way. But also with the illnesses and the sicknesses and the fishing community, we're reliant on all of these industries in order to stay healthy, and so all of that has affected us in one way or another. And then Cameron Parish is the parish right next to us, so it's just a few more miles, and then you are talking about, the wildlife refuge and beach properties. So, yeah, since the oil spill, I think we've had a lot of changes as far as like the way we think about things and our reliance on the oil industry. And although we are still very much, reliant upon that industry in particular, I think people are rethinking the way that we do things and what the impacts have been. Also with our seafood, people are not eating as much seafood as they were because there's still concerns about toxins within the seafood itself. And so that's changed, and when you change the food, you change the culture. And so we've had a lot of impacts that are sort of like that. Most of it's like economic and then psychosocial, issues, concerns about our environment, concerns about how much the politicians have sold out to the oil industry itself, and then how that affects us as people, moving forward. Yeah, anyone who's awake to what happened in the spill, they've cut down on the amount of seafood that they eat. There's a lot of concerns about that, right? I think for us in particular, for Arcadia Parish, the biggest changes have come from the damage that was felt culturally since the spill happened. Meaning that when we used to go almost every weekend, we go crabbing. We go down to the beach or go down to the marsh and go crabbing. We have not done that in 5 years now, because we just don't, first of all, the crabs aren't there. There used to be thousands of crabs that were just you could just go out there and they were everywhere. You had to be careful you didn't drive over them, The crabs aren't there anymore. And then secondly, and more importantly, we're concerned about what kind of toxins are still in those crabs, because the reports that we get mainly from our crabbers that are saying that they have found oil within the shells, that there's burn marks on the crabs, there's deformities, I've seen extra limbs on the crabs and things like that. So we feel like that's an indicator to us that those crabs are not as healthy as they once were. Now, I know that some parts of the Gulf are coming back and that you can go out to certain parts and get it, but that requires the fishermen to bring it in, and then we end up buying them. Whereas before, we were able to sustain ourselves in that way just off of the land. So that's some big changes. And then, like I said before, a large part of what we've been dealing with is we kind of live in a food desert. There is no real organic food. We do have some grocery stores, but for the most part, it's processed food that isn't healthy for us or for our kids. Whereas before, we would have that opportunity to go out and get our own food and bring that back. Well, we don't necessarily have that anymore, so that's been a major change.